Yes, welcome everyone. Welcome to the presentation about Carneades. I'm Mark, and today in about half an hour I'll tell you everything you need to know about the concept of Carneades. So let's go. Start right off. I will first make myself a little bit smaller so we can see the presentation slides. And there we go. We present Carneades. So what are we going to be talking about today? I've got some points on the slides right here. We start off with the inspiration, where the idea comes from. Then I will tell you something about some institutes which might be similar to Carneades, but which are actually different. So we start from the other side, and then after that slide, I'm gonna go on by introducing the concept itself actually. Then we move on to the values of Carneades, what's right at the heart of Carneades. Then we're going to be talking about why you would actually want to join Carneades. And finally, we will talking about the execution and how to actually launch the idea. So first of all, we will be talking about the inspiration. Where does the idea actually come from? Well, then we first need to look at my background. I'm studying physics in Delft. I'm doing philosophy in Utrecht, and I'm part of BNR Beurs in Rotterdam at the BNR Beurs Erasmus Investment Society from the Erasmus University. And I noticed something interesting at all those three places. Everyone was very busy doing their thing and very interested in other things around them, including, of course, their studies. But they were only talking about it with their peers, with their peer students from their own faculty, from their own city, from their own group. And I saw very little combination and mixing between different disciplines and different cities, different universities. It was all very localized and concentrated, so to say. Then we are at Carneades all of a sudden with the tree on the right side. I won't be talking too much because this is not a philosophy lecture, so I'll keep it short. Carneades was a Greek philosopher and one of the skeptic school. And one day he came to Rome from Greece, and he had a plea about something about Roman virtues. And one day he convinced everyone in favor of one point, and the next day in the arena he was doing his plea and he convinced everyone again of the exact opposite point. So it was very interesting to see, because what was going on here was that everyone's opinion was changed overnight. Was were his points on the second day way better? Was his rhetoric way better? Was his presentation way better? Were convincing skills better on the second or the first day? What's going on? So that was the inspiration for the name actually. So then we come at the first point, and that is a course I followed at the University of Leiden, which was a multidisciplinary honors course about complexity and networks. And this was actually the first time that I saw something which is kind of similar to Carneades in small scale. Namely, different students from different faculties came together like once a month to discuss something in the realm of complexity and networks. And they peer organized it in such a way that, for example, there was a presentation, and then we had a whole night where we were discussing about the things that were on the menu for that day. My second inspiration actually comes from Delft, where I was graduating at physics. And every week with my research group, we were doing weekly research group meetings where everyone every week could update how their research was going, give a small presentation even sometimes, and discuss just where we were standing, where we were going, and what was on our mind and which problems we were facing during that day, during that week. So it was very nice to check in every week with every one of your peers, to see how it's going and actually have some intersubjective and interactive way of communicating and interacting apart from the research that you were doing on your own during the whole week. The third inspiration comes from the OMFIF, the OMFIF, the Official Monetary and Financial Institutions Forum, with people from London and the US, which is actually an independent think tank for central banking, economic policy, public investment, which actually provides a neutral platform for the private and the public sector to come together and to make this dialogue possible for both parties. I won't go into much detail, but this was another very interesting inspiration point for me. The fourth point is has something to do with the man we were seeing on the screen. We will all be recognizing, but which name I will actually won't say loud, because it's not about this man per se himself, but it's about the idea or the thing that I noticed again in the world, and that is that in academia and in business there seems to be people that just know a hell of a lot about so many things. And I was wondering, how does it come that people, of course, without different bachelor's, masters, and I don't know how many PhDs, can still know so many things about so many different topics in such great detail and depth? And the only answer I could actually find to this question was probably that those people are meeting experts every day during all the meetings they're having at the different places, different companies, and they're basically hopping from meeting to meeting to meeting, where they're having meetings all the time with the experts that are like very much deep into the topics they are discussing that day. And then it's logical that you're being bombarded every day, all the time, with this high level knowledge about the specific field. The fifth inspiration point I noticed around me was something about homogeneity versus heterogeneity, which is a very basic idea, very trivial as well. But it's the idea that you're the average around you. But again, similar to my first point I was talking about, if you're the average around you, your environment is almost similar to you, there's like no change at all, and actually everyone is very similar, and we all start to experience bubble behavior, because we're living in bubbles actually. So I thought there should be something to do about this. And my sixth point is something about politics. So we have to go back to The Hague. And when we look at the pictures on the slides, we see something that's actually probably not quite unfamiliar to us, because we all know those images from the debates that we're seeing in The Hague, with the arms wide spread open, like we don't understand each other anymore. Because there can be debates, for example, about climate change, where there are literally statements being put up of literally conflicting truths. For example, anthropogenetic climate change is real or is not real, or it is possible to be there or it's not, and probably one way or the other one side should hold the truth. But if we, before we establish that truth, gonna discuss about the possible results of one of both sides, we're discussing actually debating about something which shouldn't be debated before about in the first place, because we first need to actually find common ground on the first place where we're starting from. And if our starting point is not the same, we're actually talking against each other. So we're not having fruitful and productive conversations, and therefore not productive debates. And my last inspiration point has something to do with reading, because, I mean, of course, everyone reads, obviously. But the thing is, everyone reads alone. And I was thinking, why can't this be different? Why can't we do this in a different way? Why can't we make it more social and interactive? So maybe we can do something with that. And of course, I have to say, we don't need to ignore the book clubs or the working classes from, for example, philosophy, where we were having discussions at university as well. But beside those things, we're mostly reading on our own. So I thought we need to do something with this. So therefore, the idea of Carneades Boom was born, and I'm introducing it right now to all of you guys and girls. So what are the main points, and how can we actually summarize Carneades Boom? And I would like to do that with the following slide. Discuss, debate, learn, grow, network, and socialize. So, before we're gonna introduce the concept and all the ins and outs, what can we beforehand say what Carneades Boom is not like? And although there are some things in Dutch, I hope everyone will still understand. So it's not a student study association, a study society. It is not a students association or society. They are not business cases. It's not you're not on the board. You're not doing an honors class. You're not having company drinks or company conferences or academic conferences. You're not on the student board. You're not doing student consultancy or even part of the Kleine Consultant from the Netherlands. No, you're also not part of a single issue think tank or doing a startup lab. Or what we spoke about before. It's not like the AMFIF, particularly about economic or central banking policies. No, it's not a one-trick pony. Although after the presentation we'll maybe say maybe there are similarities between those 5 things. No, we see too much noise around us, and that's not very nice. Why not? Oh, I will make myself to this side. Why it's not nice to have a lot of noise? Because then it's very hard to see where the signal is. And why do we want signal? We want signal to actually know how to get to our goals and to realize our goals. So what is the first part of the concept of Carneades Boom? That's about bringing experts from different backgrounds together. And I would like to define an expert as someone that just knows a little bit more than average about anything than the average around there. So that doesn't necessarily need to be university, PhD, bachelor, master, whatever. If you know something more than me about anything, you're, from my perspective, an expert. So therefore, when we do this, we are actually creating a multidisciplinary group where we have regular dialogues with widely different backgrounds and perspectives, together bridging the gap that's between those people. And then we can actually look at what are our present day challenges that we see around us. Of course, there's a lot. There's many challenges, and then we can look at them and see, what can we do with them? And maybe in the realm of for our business, political, philosophical, and scientific ambitions. And in this way, we can hear each other's projects and make a connection with the real world. Whereas in academic settings or in fiction, there's no real connection, and we can actually look for the real connection to the real world of how it's going in the world. And if we make this group of different people come together, we're creating an environment where we are gonna be on the edges of the disciplines that we're joining. And what I mean with that is that when you're part of a discipline, for example, I study physics, I know quite well what physics or physics research is now about and where we're going and where we want to go and what are the boundaries of the field. But from other disciplines, of course, I don't really know. So if everyone joins together, we can actually get an opportunity to all go to the edges of all the disciplines and see where we're going. And in this way, we will get the idea that we're going from a specialist to a generalist, and then in the fashion of once a month. So we've gathered all together. We've got our people. We kind of know what we want to do, but then the question arises: where are we going to talk about, or what are we going to discuss, or which subjects will be the topic of the night? And this we can probably just arrange in a democratic way, in my opinion. So with signing up, I made this poll, and we can see the results over here, which are, in my opinion, pretty clear. That we've got a very widespread, broad-scoped entries of different topics that are amongst the sign-ups, which people find interesting. And I've made some topics yellow, for example, psychology, economics, political science, physics and astronomy, mathematics, computer science, engineering, history, philosophy, entrepreneurship and startups are some things that we seem to have a little bit more interest in than other things. But I'm really want to emphasize that nothing is set in stone, and we can actually use all the topics that are out there to for inspiration to accommodate a session that we'll probably be doing all together. So how are we going to do those sessions then, you're asking? That's a very good question, and I was thinking about that a lot. And we want to be sustainable on the long term. So I was thinking once a month is probably pretty good. And in this way we can we can arrange the sessions in such a way that we are meeting 2 times per quarter via Zoom and 1 time per quarter in person. And in this way we're seeing each other 12 times a month, 12 times a year, of which 4 times a year in person and 8 times a year via Zoom. And then we can make sessions peer organized, similar to how I experienced my class at the University of Leiden, where everything was peer organized, and the group was divided in subgroups, and everyone was assigned an evening or a date, and they got all the freedom to prepare such a night in the theme and in any theme they wanted it to be prepared in, and in any form they wanted to prepare in. And of course there are a lot of things that can be used as inspiration or starting points. You can pick a book, a paper, an article, a video, and then from the ground up build your night, your presentation or anything, and include debate or discussion forums, and then make the form out of that in that way. So there's a lot of possibilities, and I want to emphasize again that nothing is actually set in stone, and everything is up to, in my opinion, the group. So then I made this nice figure to actually make it a little bit more graphical and visual. When we have conferences or university courses, we always see that their intensity is quite high, but their duration is quite low. A conference is maybe a couple of days, and a university course is maybe 1 or 2 periods, which spans like 1 or 2 months, and then we're on to the next one. But such a pity that we cannot have a thing that is a little bit more longer in duration over time, and also over space, because the conferences are very central and localized at one place, and the university course of course at one university, but we want to have something in over different places connected, and also over more time spread out. So that's where Carneades perfectly fits in. So again, to emphasize, dosed in intensity but constant over time. And then we've been talking about what and how we're maybe gonna do it, and about what, but now with whom. And that's quite simple, with anyone who wants to join, who finds it interesting to discover things around them. And if we look at the demographics of our interest signups so far, we see something quite interesting, namely the multidisciplinarity, which is such a key value, and diversity is already pretty present in our figures and numbers so far, which is only a good thing for the start. So now we're gonna move on to the chapter about values. What are key values for the idea about Carneades? And that's first of all that Carneades is non-credentialistic, which means we don't care about how many PhDs or masters or bachelors or studies or anything that you have on your name. We care about your input, your interest, your motivation, and what you'll be contributing and what you're saying actually, and not what your background is actually about, and how many papers or degrees you do have on your name. And in this way we want to create a safe space where everyone of course feels comfortable and safe. And this is mainly accomplished by having a good set of diversity and a healthy ratios amongst the group members. And in this way, when we combine this, we can maybe approach a nice way of community building, where we can conclude that it's about you. Carneades is not about me or anything or anyone or any organization. No, it's for you and about you. And in this way we can maybe have a nice fun time in a social way. So we've been already talking a little bit about why you would join. but now we will give a little bit more concrete examples why it would be nice to join. And that's first of all because without people there's no institutes, there will be no science, no businesses, no companies, no organizations, no governments. We need people to actually be part of something and to create something. And in this way, when we bring all these people together, we can actually learn from each other. And as I've been talking about how I view experts, if you know more about something than me, I can already learn a tremendous highly I can learn a lot from that specific thing that you're knowing, and it's so nice if we can share that in some way. And of course, we also know learning is best done in groups. When we look, for example, at my background in philosophy, we've got our lectures, which are very nice, but actually the learning takes for a big amount place in the werkcolleges. And similar in Delft, where we're doing physics, lectures are nice to get your theoretical content, but actually working on it with your peers in the groups is actually where your mind goes from 0 to 1. And as a nice intermediary, we've got a case study about interdisciplinarity. And we all know the company of we all know the company of the product that we're looking at, the EV company named Tesla, which is making nice products. Maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I find them quite interesting and nice. But the thing is, it seems like they're doing something different than the rest because nobody seems to be able to catch up to them. And that's very interesting since we know that their R&D budget, so the amount of capital money they are spending on research and development of their products and their future products, is way lower, actually significantly lower than their peers and their competitors, and still they're able to outcompete them. So the question is, how are they able to outcompete their competitors with basically less money spent? And of course, a lot of that hinges on the fact that they of course need a lot of talent and probably have a lot of talent, but talent cannot be the only thing. There needs to be something else. And what I learned and discovered is that they have a very interesting work ethic and way of working, because what they introduced was something about getting rid of compartments and departments and actually putting everyone on the same level and in the same place. And in this way, everyone is able to interact but also work together with anyone in the company. So there's not really like layers and hierarchies. No, if you want to contribute to something, or you want to add something, or you want to make something, actually anyone is able to do that. And also with any part of the company. So not really compartmentalized and departments where you actually need to go through through the ceiling or through the wall. No, they got rid of the walls, so you can actually freely move around. Okay, next topic. It's of course a lot about development and improvement of yourself, because you get the opportunity to try to become a better writer or a better presenter or a better thinker or a better speaker or a better listener, or so I'd say better human. So it's a very nice external stimulus from this idea of having an independent think tank where you're coming together, where there's also no obligations attached to them, which is a quite unique and interesting point, because all those examples and things we've seen so far are always accompanied by obligations, which is of course logical, but it's nice to have something where there's no obligation part, there's only the fun and the play part. And in this way you will actually get the opportunity to tap into a very wide and indirect network upgrade, so to say, because we all know hot contacts are more valuable than cold contacts. So if you're looking for something, your network is I would say 100% key, and there's a lot of value in your network. So why not improve your network in such a way? And to elaborate on this point a little bit more, it's also a differentiation factor. When you are doing something that actually no one else is doing around you, that you can say, hey, look, everyone was doing this and this, and I was also doing this and this, but I was also doing this, and actually not a lot of people can say that they were also doing things like that. So it's a differentiation factor. And to conclude, all of this, of course, is an enormous opportunity for you to have something that's not there and actually get a lot of value out of it, as I said before, because it is about you and it is for you. So it's the opportunity for you and the value is for you. Simple. But the most important reason to actually join the group is because it should be fun. And it in my opinion, it is fun. But if you don't think it's fun, sure, sooner or later, you will probably get a lot of friction, and it won't be sustainable in the long term. So make sure that you really can neglect all the reasons I've been talking about so far. And if you really think, yes, it's fun in my opinion, then you're a perfect fit in my opinion. So what are typical challenges that we will probably experience? Well, of course, going from 0 to 1 is the hardest part. Actually, going from 1 to 99, for example, is very, very hard, but way easier than going from 0 to 1. So we need the 0 to 1 moment. And another interesting point is that if you look at the history, companies never start how they actually become. If you look at the very big companies, but also just normal sized companies, they just start very tiny and small with a small idea, a simple ideas most of the time, and then they just organically grow afterwards. So that's what we maybe want to do as well. Start with a small snowball, kick it downwards, kick it from the hill, and just let it organically grow, and then we will see where we will end. And the most important part in this ending is, of course, also that we are in control. So we are about the execution. So we can actually put control in our own hands and be masters of our own destiny, so to say. So if you then have a peek into the future, what are we looking at? What kind of potentials do we see now? We see endless opportunities. I won't go into much detail, but we can look at events, symposia, social, partners, collaborations, board. We can create so many things. The opportunities are literally endless. But before we're gonna look into the future at way bigger things, we need to understand and always remember that we should not take ourselves too serious, because we're all fools in one way or another to some extent. So we need to start simple. We need to start small and don't make things more complicated, because they are not complicated or more complicated than you think. Just start small and simple and just build up from your first principles, so to say. And to illustrate this point, that we start small and simple and don't take ourselves too serious is the embodiment of me in this video, where we're doing a small dance and to show like, okay, it's very serious about development and good for your network and nice, but we're just playing and fooling around basically. So then we come at the recap of the presentation. We've seen multidisciplinarity. We're meeting once a month where we can connect, learn, discuss, debate, socialize, grow, and do this in a peer organized fashion where we don't have a time frame limitation of things that we see at other places, where we hopefully get to a nice level of diversity as well with topics that are widespread in nature and that are not confined or limited to your own environment and your own activities regarding studies or work or anything. So that will basically conclude my presentation and all the things I needed to say. Finally, of course, I'm looking for co-founders, because it's very nice that I came up with this idea, but to actually go from 0 to 1, it's nice to have a little bit more shoulder, a little bit more eyes, a little bit more ears. So I'm looking for some co-founders, probably around 1, 2, or 3 members, which would be a very nice number, in order to actually start the whole process of getting from 0 to 1 in the launching and the landing of the idea to a concrete thing. And from then on, when Carneades Boom is actually live, then the row below the logo that you can see on the screen is what will probably let it do its own thing, because the layer above is only, in my opinion, something that's needed for the very first period, and hopefully, fortunately, the above layer can over time just dissolve, and then we just have Carneades Boom with all the members below it, with all the values and the way of doing things, and that founders are just like all the other members, not anything more special. So I would really like to thank you for your attention, hopefully, for your interest, and for your time. I hope I was a little bit clear. I'm not the best at presenting, but that's also a nice thing to say. If I'm not good at presenting, how do I get better? Just by doing. And hopefully Carneades Boom can be a place where we will be more doing rather than wishing or thinking about what we could have been doing or could have been like. So thank you again. We will host our first session in July. I will put everything on the website. You can sign up both for if you want to join Carneades Boom as a group member, and I will also post a sign up page if you think, hey, I want to join I want to join as a co-founder, and actually want to make Carneades Boom really happen, because we need a small team to really make it happen, and then with the members of the whole group we can go on from there on. So both membership and co-founder sign-up links will be on the website, and with that I want to conclude today. Thank you very much again, and hopefully I will see you soon. Thank you. Bye.